And so particularly in your case, what would you say your greatest strength was as an assistant or now as a director at the Donalda club, as being that you were a female player in the past and then becoming a coach as well, and a minority among the staff in that role?
I think, or I like to think that I see the bigger picture. I understand if someone can't make it, that's fine. I'm not going to sit there and argue with them and negotiate about whether or not they can make it. They can't make it. And that's something that in terms of planning an organization needs to be thought of ahead of time, especially when your coaches are pulled in different directions with children or other commitments. But I think we all have lives outside of our jobs. And sometimes as contractors, we tend to work. But we need to make sure that when we are looking for that balance, that our leadership is supportive of that. And that's something I try to make sure that I'm very aware of now that I'm a leader, just making sure that my staff has my support. And obviously I understand these things that pop up here and there in terms of things that we can't control or family plans that we have.
And if I understood correctly, originally, the Toronto Lawn reached out to you and wanted to get you involved in helping them on their staff and their coaching team. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's true. Actually, I had just had my daughter and I received a phone call asking if I'd be interested because there is a shortage of female teaching professionals. And there certainly was, that was about 10 years ago. So I met with Simon and the GM at Toronto Lawn. And that was it. That was, they needed a female pro. And I had just moved back to Toronto. So I didn't have many connections built in Toronto yet, but that's where things really jumped off from. And Simon was fantastic in terms of letting me ramp up. So I had just had a child and he had some hours that he needed me to do. And the rest was kind of up to me. He was very open in terms of the level of commitment I could provide, especially being a new mother. My daughter was very young when I started. I think she was only 3 or 4 months. So he was really open to the fact that, I had this little person dependent on me. He's a father as well, so he's lived through it. But yeah, he was just very open about, he had specific hours he needed to cover off. And as my freedom and my ability to teach more came with time, that was there for me at the lawn.
That's a fantastic story. And so,
yeah.
If I can ask you a side question on this, you were a contractor and then you were staff. And I know that across the country, there's various situations for various coaches. And so, in your situation, sort of what were some of the positives or the negatives from being a contractor or being staff one way or the other in your shoes?
For sure. I felt an equal level of commitment to the club I was at as a contractor and as an employee. As a contractor, there's more flexibility in terms of the times and the freedom you have to say when you're available. I had one year where someone in my family got sick and I had to take a lot of time off to drive him to and from the hospital for treatment and appointments and things like that. Being a contractor made that very easy. And again, those people in the room, my staff, my support team, and my coworkers were very supportive of that. They understood the bigger picture. It's obviously like a pretty serious situation. So being a contractor, there was no, calling HR and calling out sick and things like that. It was my time to do with what I pleased. It makes shoulder season a little bit easier when the bubbles go up and down in Toronto. If you're a contractor, you have a lot of freedom to kind of do what you want. Maybe you take a trip, maybe you work elsewhere, the world is your oyster. But I've noticed as an employee as well, the relationships I've forged with the other people at my club outside of the tennis department have been very, very special. So being an employee at Donalda has been amazing in terms of the support, especially through the pandemic. And also just being a part of the larger team instead of more insular just within the tennis department.
That's a great summary on that one, definitely. And so, one more area that you had to go through, or not had to go through, but you willingly did so, is taking a coaching course. So you went through your Club Pro 2, which can be a challenge for coaches. Like I did my courses when I was, single, no children, and it was still a challenge. And so for you, juggling your job, your child, as well as, taking on a course, how did that experience feel like for you going through the CP2 with Tennis Canada?
So I'll be honest with you about that. Very honest with you.
Please do.
When I first got accepted, I got fast tracked, and I could take the coaching stream, or I could take the Club Pro stream. The coaching stream, as a single parent, I couldn't afford to do it. I couldn't afford to take the time off. I couldn't afford to pay the classes. Straight up couldn't afford it. Couldn't afford the time commitment. The whole thing was difficult. I did speak to Simon, my superior at the time, about it, and he made it also really clear that was I going to go into high performance coaching? Probably not. So the Club Pro stream seemed to make the most sense, but it was certainly discouraging to look at the numbers from the coaching perspective. But certainly, I'm glad I went through the Club Pro process and took the time to do that. I met a ton of people who, think like I do, had the same goals that I do, were parents as well. At the lawn, you're around 6 or 8 different people. But at these coaching certifications, you meet a lot more people who have similar life experiences, similar goals. So it's neat to be in the same room as those people to see what they're going through as well. But yeah, it was definitely paid dividends going through certification. But I did have to be somewhat strategic in terms of which stream I chose.
Well, and it seems like you chose the right one, really, for yourself and where you are right now with the Donalda Club, and having that opportunity to step. Because in my past as well, the Club Pro 2 was probably the most meaningful course I've ever taken out of all of them. So.
Yes, ultimately, yeah, Club Pro 2 and Club Pro 3 were fantastic. And I am glad that I went that route instead of sticking with the coaching.
And so besides the financial, was it also a decision based on your scheduling a little bit, or your availability, or the fact that, if you're going to the high performance stream, potentially you'll have to attend tournaments on weekends, and your schedule could be a lot more hectic being a high performance coach versus a club coach?
Yeah, that's certainly true, right? When you're involved with juniors, you have to sacrifice a lot of the basically the non-school time. So if you're a parent and you have your child in school, and then you're working with kids that are available after school, it's in direct conflict with any responsibilities you might have at home. So yeah, certainly a tricky thing for high performance coaches to manage, for sure, is the relationship with their juniors as well as their children.
And so, if there was a message for any of the younger female pros that are just coming into the coaching stream, or maybe potentially are still even playing but thinking of coaching, what would be your message to them?
I think, coaching has been fantastic for me. I love it. I love meeting new people. I get a little bit of high performance through Tennis Canada and the OTA, which is fantastic. But I must admit, my passion is for introducing people to tennis. And as a female, I think it's just such an asset to forge these different relationships as we go. You're almost essentially guaranteed a job because there are such few females out there. And you should find the right staff, right? The right staff that support you as you grow older into an adult, right? And have more clear vision of how your path will go, whether you have a family or not. But I think there's a lot of support out there for female coaches, and certainly a lot of opportunity as well.
That's great. And if there was somebody out there that wanted to ask you a question or ask for advice, is that a route that they can take and send you an email?
Yes, absolutely. Please send me an email.
Awesome.
I can list it here if you want, Euros, or you can put it up on the screen.
What is it? And then I will also list it.
Perfect. It's lbradwell@donaldaclub.ca. So LBRADWELL @Donalda, DONALDA Club, CLUB.ca.
Perfect. Leigh, really appreciate your time and sharing your experience. It's been awesome talking to you.
It's my pleasure, Euros.
Yeah.
As always.
Yes. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.